Hello, I will be beginning my Module 2 first discussion post here, my video. I'll be answering four of the prompts here. The first one being make a list of at least three of your strongly held beliefs. What are those beliefs based on and how do they reflect your cultural background? I think first we need to understand what a belief is. It's an idea based off of our previous experiences. So my first belief is seeing things through. Um, I told myself about a year ago that I wanted to improve my health, so I started going to the gym and told myself go 5 days a week. Do not skip it, do not miss it unless you really, really can't go. And I stuck to it, and I've noticed significant increases in my health and my strength. And so um, that's a core belief for me. I have a quote here saying, these beliefs may not have been formed through rigorous study, but you nevertheless hold them as important aspects of yourself. That was on page 64. So, I hold the gym as an important aspect in my day, and I devote time to it. And so, that is a reflection of my belief here. My second one, accepting ownership. I remember when I was very young, I was playing soccer with my friends, and I think we accidentally kicked the ball over the fence, my neighbor's fence, and we knocked something over. I think it was just a shovel, if I remember right, but my dad made me go over, knock on the door, and ask them to make sure everything was okay and there was no damage done. And I had already seen that nothing, had happened. My ball just went over the fence, but I don't know why at the time, but it felt humiliating to go over to my neighbor who I didn't really know and knock on the door and make sure everything was okay. And um, I kind of learned that accepting ownership is really important for your integrity and honesty. Um, I learned that even if it's good, if you accomplish something, that's okay to take ownership. I mean, it's good to be humble, but you can be proud of what you've done. So it goes the other way as well. And third would be paying it forward. So surrounding yourself with positive people, because then you'll be more inclined to give back. If you're treated well, you'll have opportunities to do the same. An example of this, let's see here. Just the other day, I had someone pay for my meal in the drive-through. I was then inclined to pay for the person behind me, keep the chain going. So, um, and I think that all of these have a reflection on my cultural background in a way that um, society is kind of, at least in the United States, where we are, or where I am at the moment. It's kind of a ladder system. So all of these are kind of related to social norms, accepting ownership, paying things forward, and seeing things through. And uh, you have to do your best to move up in the ladder. So I think that's kind of how it reflects on my cultural background. That concludes the first prompt. Moving on to the second one. Describe what it means to be beautiful, successful, or attractive in your culture. The view realistic or healthy, universal across. Um, let's see here. I think beauty in our culture is often seen as symmetry, so that also means being in perfect shape as well. Um, and then success can be seen as lots of money with lots of materialistic objects as well, and a nice family, kind of like the American dream. I know it's changing, but going back to the American dream. And this view isn't always realistic or healthy. I mean, how often do you see someone that in good enough shape and looks like they should belong on the front cover of a magazine? I mean, that's it's not always such a realistic standard to put everyone on in society. So I don't really think it's healthy to put a lot of people in a situation where they feel like they need to have that. And I understand that that is not everyone's dream. A lot of people have unique dreams. They have their own things they want to do, and that's completely different from it. But I'm kind of going off of just a typical cultural dream that a lot of people in the United States at least go for. It's definitely not universal. I know that other countries, their standards of beauty are very different. There are body modifications that others do to uphold their own version of beauty, and I think it's all perception. So I have a quote here. Physical characteristics influence how we perceive and respond to information. In the same way, other physical differences influence our perception. So yeah, it's saying that other physical differences influence our perception. You sometimes you have to look past that. Um, how we perceive something off the first glance isn't always what it is. Then moving on here, it says process of perception. Choose. I think perception can actually limit our view. I was kind of going off the glance doesn't really it doesn't really mean anything because we don't really know anything about the person always on the first glance. There's a lot more to someone than their physical characteristics. We don't know what someone has been through or who they really are off of first glance. I thought that, for example, someone in high school, there's someone who I kind of thought was like a douchebag, but we got paired up once for a group project, and turns out we had a lot in common. Now he's one of my best friends, so kind of interesting how that works. But quote here: our differences in perception are directly influenced by our cultural background and can impact our intercultural communication. So you don't really know about a culture until you're either surrounded by it or you've um, read about it. Or so at first glance, a first perception, it can limit our view. We don't really know everything about something until kind of immersed in it. And so I think that's kind of how perception can limit our view. And then moving on to the fourth prompt, which is the fifth one on this list, list at least 3 demographic traits that apply to you. How does belonging to these demographic groups influence your perception and priorities? All right, so I think that demographics are huge influencers on our perception and priorities. Myself, I'm 19, I'm a male, and I'm a college student. How I prioritize things and view the world is very different from how you may prioritize things or view the world. An example: if English was not your first language, your readers or listeners might want to focus on simple, clear, or other terms, such as images, to reinforce your message non-verbally. I was on page 105, and specifically in my situation, I work in an Italian restaurant called Ferrante's, and I'm the youngest one there by at least 5 years. So um, what that does is when we're always talking about music, movies, or anything in the kitchen, their experiences are very different than mine. So I can't always relate because I'm in a different demographic. So I don't really prioritize making connections with them with their music or movie taste always because they'll be talking about their music from, I mean, I'm not saying they're very old or anything, but that slight generation difference can make it. So they'll be talking about their music, and I don't know about it. They'll be saying, "Oh, I remember when this came out in theaters, and I was still a young child at the time, so I don't know." So I'm talking about more current events with them most of the time. Um, when it was really hot out, I think we were talking about how hot it was for like 2 weeks, and surprisingly enough, that kept the conversation for a while. Talking about current events in the news, so I can normally get more out of talking about those things just because I can't always relate to their. Let's see how we perceive each other. So I think that the demographic it affects our perception in a way. I perceive me as older than I am. I perceive them as younger than they are. So they'll go out to fight me. Right. And I think it's because fast that I perceive younger because I'm around them enough where I can see that they're just people trying to make the world. I don't really just see them as like intimidating or adults or anything like that. That's you're around them and treat them like someone aged. So because I spend so much time around them, I think that's kind of what I think it. So yes, demographic can influence perception priorities for sure. That is all I have for those prompts.